guys, Sean C. Phillips here. Yes, back in the DVD room. I got a lot of suggestions from people saying they wanted to see a video on me talking about my favorite Christmas holiday films. And basically, I went through them, went through the ones I had, and I got ones that some of them have like Christmas scenes in them, or I kind of think of them or watch them around Christmas time. A lot of these are kind of really well known. But since I got a lot of people asking me to do one, I did want to do this. I did one of these, I think, back in 2007, but I don't think as many people saw that one. Now, the first one, which is one of my personal favorite Christmas films, is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. It's funny now, too, there's those commercials for Old Navy, and they actually got, Juliette Lewis, and it's, like, done in the style of, at the house and stuff. It's pretty cool how they did that commercial for Old Navy. But, if you haven't seen this one, the movie's basically about the Griswold family, who is in vacation. It's them at Christmas. Of course, it's different kids in every movie. That's sort of the joke with the movies. But it's on Christmas, and the family comes over, and it's all kinds of the problems that they go through. And Cousin Eddie comes over, and stays there, and it's basically about their family and all the kinds of issues they get into at Christmas. Always been a favorite Christmas one of mine. Always really love the sled scene, which was always a real memorable scene. The Christmas tree scene that, catches fire is a very memorable one. This is one, if you don't have this, or if you've never seen this, it's a Christmas film that you have never seen, definitely one to check out. Now, some of these aren't open because recently, I've upgraded to them and I had the DVD. And, sometimes if I upgrade to something, I don't always open them. So I've never not watched, it's like I have not watched these movies. People are like, oh, you didn't watch them? Because sometimes people say that if I have something that's not open. But I have watched this, don't worry. But I recently got Christmas Story on Blu-ray. Well, sorry, it's a little dark on this side, right here. There's a little better. I haven't, filmed in here a long time. But, I actually had to get this on Blu-ray because I recently bought Christmas Story 2. And I was kind of like, oh, I don't own Christmas Story on Blu-ray, and I actually bought Christmas Story 2. I better buy this quick. But I actually thought Christmas Story 2 was okay. I didn't include this in the list because it's not one that I'm going to actually probably watch again. It was okay. But, Christmas Story was, about Ralphie and I think it's Ralphie and his family, and, basically just about his life at Christmas and, the things that he wants. This side's, but it's still a little hot on this side. But, the things he wants for Christmas and things like that. Of course, it's got the Red Ryder BB gun scene, which is like the famous scene in the movie. I just watched a movie with the same kid from this. This is totally off topic, but a really cool movie called Death Valley with him in it that he did right before this. But this is a great Christmas one, though. One that, they always play. It kind of gotten a little bit, with a lot of people, oversaturated, though, because of how many times they played it on, I think it's TBS or TNT. So a lot of people are like, well, I like it, but I don't watch it too much. I kind of have the same opinion, because I probably watched this I don't know, I pretty much have watched this every single Christmas, and sometimes, more than once. But, I don't know, I always like this. Did think of one that I forgot to pick up, though. Black Christmas, from the same director. The next one I want to talk about is the Santa Claus films. These are personal favorites. The first one, though, is my all-time favorite. And if you, haven't ever seen the Santa Claus movies, it's Tim Allen and his son on Christmas. Santa's son, Tim Allen's son hears Santa on the roof. They go out to see him. Tim Allen doesn't believe in Santa Claus, so he ends up seeing this guy on the roof and yells to him, what the hell are you doing up there? Ends up falling down and dying. And, basically, because Tim Allen's responsible for the Santa Claus's death, he has to put on the suit and he has to become the next Santa Claus. So it's him, becoming the next Santa Claus, and all the changes that are happening to him, and all the kind of problems that are going on with him and his ex-wife, and, his son, and things like that. But a really great, Christmas film. Always was one of my favorite ones. I really remember seeing this one in theaters. Like I said, the sequels are okay. They're a little bit more kiddish, because I think they're both G-rated. So they kind of take a little bit more of a kid route, when the first one kind of had a little bit more of it's a little bit more for adults and kids. The sequels are a little bit more like taking the kid direction. The next one I got, and this is the 3D Blu-ray one. Now, this movie, wasn't in 3D when it first came out. This was converted. But it's Nightmare Before Christmas 3D. Every time I pick this up, I always have screwed this up in the past and said Nightmare on Elm Street, and it's been like a ongoing screw up, and I didn't mess it up this time. Nightmare Before Christmas 3D. But this is the one about Halloween Town, and then Jack Skellington finds the way into Christmas World, and he ends up kidnapping Santa Claus and trying to bring Santa Claus, bring Christmas to Halloween Town, and all the things that end up happening. This is a great Blu-ray as well because it has Frankenweenie, the original version on it. But this is a great clay animation Christmas film. Another one that I've always loved and watched tons of times. This is one of the newer ones. Well, not really new, but it's from a couple of years back, and it's Elf with Will Ferrell, and Will Ferrell is a elf. It's kind of like the biggest elf of all of them, and don't remember all the stuff that happens in it. Haven't watched this one in a long time. Remember, though, really liking this, but I think it's like he goes to a department store, and all that's just a bunch of stuff happens. Like I said, some of these ones I don't remember all the details. This one has a cool Christmas scene in it, and it's Chevy Chase and Funny Farm. I think it's near the end. They have to impress. Like, I don't want to say everything that happens, but it has a good Christmas scene in it. This other one, I always kind of like this. I wasn't sure if I was going to pick this one up or not. It's not a perfect movie. It's Fred Claus, and it's Vince Vaughn and Paul Giamatti, and I think it's Paul Giamatti's Santa Claus, and Fred, Vince Vaughn. Sorry, it's Hot Light. I haven't used this in a long time. But Vince Vaughn is Paul Giamatti's brother, and he's kind of a screw up, and all the kind of things they go on. They did some weird stuff in this movie where they put like heads of kind of a weird effect. They haven't done much lately. They were kind of like a big thing at this certain maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. They used it in Little Man when they would take a head of a large actor and put their head on like a kid's body and make it look like they were small, and it always kind of looked weird. Like it kind of looked like a floating head on. It was just this thing they would do back then. They haven't used it much recently, but it was like real big for like 3 years in like this and Little Man and a couple other things. And you always kind of watching it, you're like, especially in Little Man, you're like, I don't know about this. The other one, this is one that I had kind of people have a mixed opinion of this. I always really liked it, though. It's Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis in Christmas with the Cranks. And basically, though, Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis' kids in the movie, it's just their daughter has gone away to college, and they end up getting, basically they have like a big to-do at Christmas in this neighborhood. The whole neighborhood puts up lights, puts up this Frosty thing on the roof, a big statue of Frosty, the snowman, and the daughter calls and says, from college, I'm not going to make it this year. And basically, Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis' character are like, what are we going to do? Tim Allen comes up with the idea of skipping Christmas and not doing anything for it. Basically, they're going to not put up any Christmas lights, they're not going to put up Frosty, and they're going to go away on Christmas and take a cruise. And it ends up becoming a terrible thing because the whole neighborhood is coming after them and going, why aren't you putting up Frosty? And they're basically thinking that they have no Christmas spirit, and they don't really know what they're doing. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say. But this is one I really do like this one. And the next one I want to talk about is Gremlins. This is another one that takes place on Christmas. And, it's basically about, for Christmas, the main character in the movie ends up getting a Mogwai that his dad had bought in Chinatown, and basically it's got all these rules with it. You can't feed it after midnight. If you get it wet, the thing will multiply, and things like that. And he ends up accidentally, feeding him at night, and it ends up, multiplying and having he gets wet. I can't remember exactly, confused exactly how it happens, but I remember there basically ends up being a whole bunch of them, and they end up taking over the town on Christmas. This is one of my favorite ones, though. Like, I've watched this movie so many times. I like the sequel just as much, though. The next one, it says an all Christmas, but I always think about this as Christmas because it was snowing and had a lot of sequences with snow, so it's kind of like in that element, and one that I love to watch, and it's Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands. This is like an absolute must watch. Like, if you haven't seen this one, just go out and get this. This is one, too, when I think back to music, I remember, like, as a kid, this is one of the first movies I remember really obsessing over the score to this movie. I used to have the cassette tape of this. I would listen to this again and again. Really loved this type of Danny Elfman music. He hasn't done this kind of style music in a long time, but this is such a great movie about basically Edward Scissorhands' character was created by Vincent Price's character, and he was just about finished. He's a robot, just about finished, but doesn't have hands, and he has scissors for hands. And Diane West's character is an Avon salesman, goes up to the house where Edward Scissorhands lives, which is basically an old, kind of dilapidated mansion. She ends up going up there and seeing him, and, she's really feels bad for him, so she ends up inviting him to live with them and trying to get his life together and trying to help him out in any way she can. And things, basically what ends up happening. Really a great movie. Really sad, though. Always one of those movies you're always going to have a cry to this one. This one, I enjoy this one, but it does have a real, kind of negative Christmas vibe, and it's Bad Santa. Haven't watched this one in a long time, but it's basically Billy Bob Thornton is kind of like this negative mall Santa. I know this was one of John Ritter's last movies, so I always kind of like this because this was one of the last things he did. Always been such a huge fan of John Ritter. He was such a loss. I really loved, Sling Blade, and kind of always wish he got to do more movies in that kind of style, and he just never got to do more drama stuff. The next one, which is another one that has some sequences at Christmas, I think the opening and the end, basically the opening of it is Christmas, and I always think of this around Christmas, and it's Hook. Another one that has a soundtrack that I used to always obsess about, and you always, of course, obsess about Rufio, and the kid who plays Rufio, who still to this day looks exactly the same. He's like the ageless kid. Rufio must have must really be a lost boy, because the guy who plays him, and anyone who looks at pictures of him now, he's in his mid-30s, I think, 30-something, and he looks like the same. It's really strange. But I guess he is one of the Lost Boys. But, this is about, Peter Pan, who kind of forgets he's Peter Pan as an adult, gets taken back. He goes back to his old house where he lived, and Captain Hook ends up kidnapping his children, and he has to go and fight Captain Hook, but doesn't remember that he's Peter Pan, and has to kind of remember how to fly and do everything again. This is another one that's a personal favorite of mine. Some people, turn their nose up at it. I don't know why. I love it. And it's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jingle All the Way, him and Sinbad in the movie. Hopefully someone puts Sinbad in another movie soon, too. I like Sinbad. I know he's had so many career problems and things lately, and I like him. I don't know why he the acting thing, just all of a sudden, he was in all these movies, and then nothing. And I don't know what happened, because he was good, and most of the people seem to like him. But this is basically about Arnold Schwarzenegger. His son, he's talking to his son, he's kind of missing his son's things and busy at work, so he's not at his son's karate thing, tournament, and a bunch of stuff. He basically just keeps missing things. And he says to his son, what do you want for Christmas? I'm sorry this is going on. What's the one thing you really want this year? And he wants the Turbo Man doll. And of course, he hears about this the day before Christmas, and he goes there, in the morning, and he's trying to get it, and it's the disaster of trying to get this thing, because he didn't get it when he was supposed to. He was supposed to get it months back, and him and Sinbad are both, in a big fight to try and get it, and all the kind of situations that happen. The next ones are absolute, when you think Christmas, I think these, first, and they're both of the Home Alone films. Mainly the first one has a real... they're both on Christmas, but the first one's, all in the house. But it's basically the first one, if you haven't seen them, just go on Amazon and order it immediately. But it's basically Kevin McAllister's character, Macaulay Culkin's character in the movie, ends up... He's sort of like the bad kid of the house, or, always kind of getting into problems. And he gets in an argument with his mom because he ends up spilling drinks all over the place, and gets yelling at his brother because he ate his last piece of cheese pizza. So he ends up going and getting sent to his room, and the mom's kind of yelling at him, and she's what I want for Christmas is I want no family. Basically, he wants to live alone. Ends up waking up the next day, and the family ended up forgetting him. So it's him in this house by himself. Then, of course, the stuff with the robbers and all the things that happen. And the sequel is him getting left in he gets on the wrong plane, and him in New York kind of screwing around and all the adventures that he goes in. Perfect movies, though. The next one is the Bill Murray version of Scrooge, because they made a lot of versions of this. This is my favorite one, though, kind of over-the-top, comical, crazy sequences in this. The one guy who plays the cab driver in this, he's another one of those kind of actors that you saw a whole lot, but you don't see him much anymore. And he had like a real unique voice. But it's basically about the story of, you know, the guy who is kind of, in this one he's a director. I think he's directing a play of A Wonderful Life, I think it is. Can't remember all the stuff. Christmas Carol. And he ends up being kind of mean to everybody. And him, like, witnessing what it would be like if he was dead. And going back and seeing things in his life and things like that. Now, this one, I don't remember too much about this. But I recently just bought this one. But I remember as a kid being so scared for some reason of the trailer to this. And I couldn't find the trailer online. If you try and find it, it can't be found. But it was the original trailer to Prancer. And there's something about the voiceover in it and the way it was cut together. It was real quick and creepy. And I know it's a G-rated movie, and there's something about it that was like, I don't know what it is, though. And it's Prancer. And all I remember is the girl had this, like, I don't even remember. I haven't watched it in 20 years. The next one is another great one, which is Ernest Saves Christmas. Hopefully at some point this comes out to Blu-ray. I'm surprised it hasn't, because I know some of them are coming out from Mill Creek, and then some of, I think they're all Mill Creek, and I think another company owns some of them. But it's, you know, Santa's basically quitting, and you're basically retiring, and it's just a whole bunch of different things happening in it. But it's really a good one. Really love all the Ernest films. This is a great one. And this is kind of the one that was one of the few theatrical ones that most people have seen this one. This one also has the stuff with him talking to Vern in it. And I don't think that was in many of the other ones. Because he would say Vern, but this one he's actually like holding the camera and like talking to Vern in this more than he did in the other ones. This is another one that has a great Christmas scene in it. And it's such a good movie. Hopefully this is another one that hopefully comes to Blu-ray soon. But it's a movie with Lucille Ball, and Henry Fonda. And it's Yours, Mine, and Ours. Now there's a remake of this. Don't even bother with that. But this one is like a total classic. The best scene in this is the dinner table scene when they get Lucy drunk. And, you know, wonderful, 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 wonderful. And she's like spilling the potatoes in the kid's lap. And so, I don't know. This is a great one. And every time I think of this thing, now I kind of think of the Duggars. You know, that 19 kids and counting, you know, very strange family. But, like, especially the shopping scene when they're out there getting the food and he's putting back the beer. I'm thinking of, you know, the Duggars out there shopping. And, you know, I don't know what Mr. Duggar would put back. We can make an assumption of what he would put back because of how many kids there are. That's a good joke. Now, the next was all right one. The next one is another one that has a Christmas scene at the beginning and has a real kind of Christmas vibe to it. A lot of people didn't like this one. I watched it again. I like it. I like the music to it. I don't know. People really didn't like this one, though. And it's Toys with Robin Williams. And it's basically about a toy company, and the head of the company ends up dying, and his brother ends up taking over. Yeah, and his brother is crazy, and he's all about war toys, and he's screwing things up there little by little. Now onto the Christmas horror movies. Christmas Evil is a great one about a guy who's basically spying on kids and making his own list of who's naughty and who's nice. And the kids that are bad, he like kills their parents. And I think the mom from Home Improvement is almost like sort of a real small scene. I think you see her face for a split second and you hear her voice. And I always remember that. I'm pretty sure she was in this. But this is a great Christmas slasher one. And of course, the Silent Night, Deadly Night films. You know, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 1 and 2. Part 2, you know, is basically just Part 1. You know, like 30 minutes of Part 1 and then like the Garbage Day scenes and some other stuff cut in. But the first one is great. This is the new edition. I already had the other one, but I bought this just because of a different cover. I know. But this is a great one. You know, a guy in the department, I think it's a department store, some kind of store, killing off people. And the other one, the Silent Night, Deadly Night sequels, they're not the greatest, but if you want Christmas slashers, these are some of the best ones. The other one, too, Black Christmas, which I have back there. Of course, the Bob Clark version. The remake really is not worth watching. But anyway, though, this was my video on my favorite Christmas films. Thanks a lot for watching, for subscribing. I'll see you guys later, and soon I'm going to do the top movies of 2012. Got to do that one in the next week after you see this or so. But anyway, though, thanks a lot for watching, for subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.